Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Iggy's Toy Parade and Soldier Review. This is your host, Iggy. And today I have something fun for you. This is a Jeep made by Ultimate Soldier, and it's a Vietnam era Jeep. And you can tell that almost immediately by looking at the M60 machine gun mounted on the center pedestal there. Now, the Jeep comes with a spare tire and a radio, which I'm going to try and show to you now. There's the radio. Looks like an ammunition belt has fallen. Here's the phone receiver or radio receiver. Here's the antenna, what they call a whip antenna. It's got a tow hook, and the reason why it had a tow hook is because this originally came with a trailer. And I think what they were attempting to do with this is make something reminiscent of the G.I. Joe 5-star Jeep by Hasbro, which was introduced in 1965. So let's go back in time and take a look at the G.I. Joe Jeep, okay? That's my going back in time music. Do you guys remember that TV show, The Time Tunnel? I loved that show when I was a kid, but I tried watching it as an adult, and all the stock footage kind of, I don't know, kind of wrecked it for me, I guess. But anyway, it's a fun show concept. They tried to make another time tunnel show, and the production values were excellent. However, okay, the episode took place during World War II, and they showed GIs with a black woman officer commanding them. And I'm like, oh my God, someone has not looked at a history book, and it's called The Time Tunnel. Anyway, it never got picked up by any of the stations, so it's now languishing in some sort of locker somewhere, I guess. It's a pity because that show was a lot of fun. But if we were to go back in time, like I was hoping to do with my sound effect, here we are. This is the 1965 Sears catalog. And lo and behold, there's the G.I. Joe 5-star Jeep. And it came with a trailer with a searchlight, battery operated searchlight on the back, and a recoilless rifle that had plastic shells that you can see here in the back. It could fit several G.I. Joes. It had this sort of weird motor sound, which basically was a metal strip that would slap on a wheel as it turned. And it was somewhat similar to the concept of the playing card with the paper, with the clothesline pin stuck to the spokes of your Stingray bicycle. It's the same idea. So it made a clattering sound as you pushed the Jeep forward. It was kind of hokey, but they kind of played it up there, didn't they? Here's a close up of the searchlight or searchlight, I guess, and the recoilless rifle. So you can see here the Ultimate Soldier version. I got this Jeep in January of 1999, and the trailer that came with it I sold on eBay and actually made some good money on it. I think I got like $30 for it, which isn't bad. So how can you tell a World War II M38 Jeep to say a 1960 Jeep? Well, the fenders, or the wings as they call it, that's how you can immediately identify them. They call this the wing, sometimes call it the wing, or I call it a fender. And the M38 did not have a light, direction light, or a blackout light, which you see on this configuration. So this would be an M151A2, because the M151 was a plain fender. The A1 had a direction signal, and the A2 had the combination of direction signal and also the blackout light. What gave it away for me, of course, was the M60. That's an easier way to tell on this Jeep. This Jeep is pretty impressive, although I noticed that it doesn't have any detail on its dashboard. See, the speedometer and odometer and all those things are just plain plastic, which is disappointing. It also did not come with a back seat, which the Jeep I drove in the Army had a rear seat, which had the same sort of cushion as this seat. We would paint names on the front of the Jeep. I can't remember. We also painted it on the bumper, but it would say First Sergeant so-and-so, and then Spec 4, a Marlette for the driver. That was me. But otherwise, it looks pretty much like the Jeep that I drove. Now, there is slight modifications over the years, such as the M151 had independent suspension and came with improved springs and for improved performance. This was originally the concept was first developed in 1939, and this was referred to as a light utility truck, a 4x4 light utility truck, and it weighed 1/4 of a ton, which I can't seem to picture this weighing 1/4 of a ton, because in real life they're not that big. I mean, if you were standing next to this, you could see that your head would probably be up here. On this model, the windshield comes up and down. And I think I told you this story already. I was driving down a dirt road through the middle of a country road with farms on either side. And our whip antenna was actually longer than this one and was bent forward, and a tree branch grabbed it and it pulled it all the way back. And then as we went forward, it let go, and the antenna, which was longer than this one, came whipping around and smashed the windshield. Scared the hell out of the three of us, because I was sitting in the Jeep with the first sergeant and one of our lieutenants. And everyone said, "Oh, that's typical of Iggy." But, they didn't know that the antenna got caught either. But, of course, I was the lowest ranking guy, so I was the fall guy. Only I didn't have Heather Thomas as a sidekick. That would have been nice. So when this Hasbro Jeep came out, Hasbro discovered that the kids were really into vehicles, and so Hasbro licensed a company called Irwin to produce other things for the kids. Rumor has it Hasbro was disappointed with the results. Here's a sample of 3 of them. They came out with other vehicles as well, such as a motorcycle with sidecar, a German, they called it a staff car, but it looked like a Kubelwagen. Um, I actually never saw any of these when I was a kid, but I did see the motorcycle and sidecar because the kids across the street got one, and their parents bought them two Imperial Japanese to go with it. And then they also bought them a couple Germans to go with the German staff card. Now, the kids across the street, their father was a Marine. And even years and years after World War II, he still had the crew cut. He was a tough bastard, I remember. I used to hear him screaming at everybody. Their mom was Japanese, and she was a pretty little petite girl who did not like me or my mom. But so that her boys weren't allowed to play with me during the school year because I was considered a bad influence. Because all I wanted to talk about was G.I. Joe and not school. Anyway, her sons were A students, and I was probably a D minus or a C minus student. So I don't blame her for not wanting me to hang out with her kids. I never got the Jeep. I wanted it, but I never got it. That year I did get for Christmas the Foot Locker, which you see here. And for my birthday that year, I got the Deep Sea Diver, which you see here. And this was an awesome set. The only thing is that because I kept putting it in the pool, the suit deteriorated and the Joe fell apart. All the parts inside the Joe rusted and the elastic bands stretched out. And so the Joe's parts fell off. Okay, guys, that's all I got for you with the Ultimate Soldier M151A2 Mutt. And by the way, those were manufactured by 3 different companies. I believe it was Kaiser, Ford, and Willys. And eventually Kaiser was absorbed, became part of Willys, and then it just disappeared. They had some pretty cool looking cars back in the day. Unfortunately, a lot of those smaller car companies are no longer with us anymore. Okay, well, how about we climb into this Jeep and head out to Roy Rogers Ranch? And you know what we're going to do. We're going to go to the chow wagon. We're going to get baked beans. We're going to get biscuits with plenty of butter, corn on the cob, bacon. Let's go for some roasted potatoes. And of course, we got to have cherry pie and apple pie. And that's all I got for you this time, guys. I'll be back again with another Jeep in my next video. In the meantime, I'd like to thank those of you who have enlisted in the Iggy Army. And for those who've gotten Iggy with it tonight, thank you very much. Take care of each other and your families. Take your collections out, dust them off, and maybe even add to it if at all possible. I know it can get pretty expensive. And that's probably why Iggy doesn't have a home. I have to rent. Anyway, should I say goodbye? Okay.